She convinced me to sign over our $400, $0 house for her affair with my best friend, then secretly took $150, $0 from my emergency fund. Now she's threatening to sue me for emotional distress over the property and money I've lost. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, trying to make sense of everything that's happened over the past few months. The wild part is that I only figured it all out because of a stupid, careless mistake. It's like the universe decided to throw everything at me all at once. My wife, her lies, the money, the betrayal. The thing that still haunts me is how quickly everything unraveled once I caught her in the act. One day, I was just going through our bank statements out of boredom, and what I saw made my stomach drop. Her name's Lisa. We've been married for 7 years, and honestly, I thought we had a decent life. She's always been a bit high maintenance, but that's just her personality. She's pretty good at convincing you she's the victim, that she's misunderstood, that she's always right. But I started noticing little things, late nights, weird texts, her phone always face down. She'd get defensive if I asked about her whereabouts. I figured it was just her being paranoid or maybe her way of avoiding fights, but deep down I knew something was off. Then I saw the bank statement, the one I hadn't looked at in a while. It was from her personal account, and I noticed a transfer I didn't recognize, 150, zero taken out of our emergency fund. That's a huge chunk of money, especially since we'd been saving for years to buy a new house, or at least that's what I thought. When I looked closer, I saw it was withdrawn just a few days before I caught her sneaking out late at night. That's when I started putting pieces together. The timing was too perfect. I decided to dig a little more. I started checking her phone, her emails, her social media, and that's when I found the messages. It wasn't just flirtatious texts. It was outright sexting with my best friend, Mark. She'd been sleeping with him for months, I think. The messages were explicit, full of lies about how much she loved me, how she was just bored, how Mark was so good in bed. She convinced me she was just friends with him, nothing more, but I knew better. The way she was texting him, the things she was saying, it was obvious they were more than friends. The worst part, she had the nerve to lie about it when I confronted her. I showed her the messages and she just shrugged, said I was overreacting, that I was paranoid. She told me Mark was just a friend, that I was crazy to think anything else. She insisted she loved me, that she'd never cheat on me, yet she was doing exactly that right under my nose. It was like she was daring me to believe her lies, to ignore the evidence right in front of me. That's when I felt this burning rage, not just at her but at myself for being so blind. I'd trusted her for years, and now I felt like I'd been played for a fool. My mind was racing. How could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly? And the money, her taking that huge sum without telling me, that was just the cherry on top. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. I thought I knew her, thought I knew us, but everything was a lie. I couldn't sleep that night, lying awake and replaying all the signs I missed, all the moments I should have seen through her fake smile. It was the beginning of a long, painful journey I wasn't prepared for, but I knew I had to face it head on. After discovering all of this, I knew I couldn't just brush it under the rug or pretend it was a one-time mistake. The evidence was too clear, and the betrayal cut deep. I sat there in my living room, staring at her phone, her messages, the bank statements, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut 100 times over. I remember feeling this mix of shock, anger, and disbelief. How could she lie so effortlessly? How could she betray me with my best friend? I'd always thought Lisa was a bit manipulative, but I never thought she'd go this far. That night was the worst. I kept asking myself what I did wrong, if I missed signs, if I should have seen it coming. But deep down, I knew it wasn't about me screwing up. It was about her choices. She had been plotting this for months, maybe longer, and I was just too blind or too trusting to see it. I felt humiliated, especially knowing she had convinced me to sign over our house, our biggest asset, just a few weeks earlier. She told me she wanted to fix things, that she needed a fresh start, and I stupidly believed her, told her I trusted her with everything. The next day, I confronted her. I sat her down in the living room, told her I knew everything, the affair, the money, the lies. Her face twisted into this bitchy sneer and she started spinning her stories. She said I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that Mark was just a friend who helped her with some work stuff. She insisted she loved me and that I was just jealous. That she'd never cheat, that I was just insecure. But I didn't buy it. The evidence was too damning. She could lie all she wanted, but I saw through her bullshit. Her reaction was infuriating. She yelled, called me crazy, said I was ruining our marriage over stupid accusations. She even tried to turn the tables, saying I was emotionally abusing her by accusing her of cheating, that she was the victim here, that I was ruining her life. That's when I realized how manipulative she was. She's always been good at twisting things around to make herself look innocent, even when she's the one in the wrong. I felt my blood boiling. I wanted to scream, to tear her apart, but I knew that wouldn't solve anything. I just sat there, listening to her lie through her teeth, feeling more betrayed than I ever had before. How could I have been so blind? How could she do this to me, to us? I'd given her everything, our house, our savings, my trust, and she threw it all away for some stupid affair with Mark. I kept thinking about the money, the house, the years we built together, and how she just took it all for herself. It was like she was stealing my life and laughing while doing it. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything, her lies, her betrayal, the money she took. I felt numb, but also a fire building inside me. I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what yet. All I knew was that I couldn't just let her get away with it. I had to find a way to fight back, to get some kind of justice. The betrayal was one thing, but losing our house, our savings, and my dignity was another. I felt like I'd been sucker punched, and now I was trying to pick myself up off the floor, wondering how I was going to get through this mess. I started researching everything I could: laws about property, legal ways to challenge her, and what my options were if she decided to sue me for emotional distress, which I knew she was already hinting at. I realized she was a master manipulator, and I had to be smarter. I started planning my next move, but honestly, I was just overwhelmed. The person I thought I knew was gone, replaced by this cold, lying bitch who had schemed behind my back for who knows how long. I had no idea what was coming next, but I knew one thing for sure: my life was about to change forever. After that confrontation, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. The house, once a symbol of stability, now felt like a prison. Everywhere I looked, I saw reminders of her: the photos of us, the furniture we bought together, even the damn coffee mug she always used. But what haunted me the most was the thought of losing everything: our home, the money she swiped from the emergency fund, and the trust that was shattered beyond repair. I started digging into our financial situation more thoroughly. I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with. I pulled up all our bank and credit card statements, went through every transaction. The $150 she took from the emergency fund was just the tip of the iceberg. I found more suspicious activity: hidden accounts, transfers to accounts I never knew she had access to, and some large cash withdrawals. It was obvious she'd been planning this for a while, probably even before I suspected anything. The more I uncovered, the angrier I got. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, trusting her, sharing my life and my money, and she was out there doing God knows what with Mark. It was like a punch to the gut every time I found new evidence. I felt betrayed, angry, humiliated, everything you'd expect when your wife, the person you thought loved you, turns out to be a complete liar. Then came the decision to confront her again, this time more strategically. I told her I knew about the affair and the money. Her reaction: she threw a tantrum, accused me of invading her privacy, said I was crazy for spying on her. She insisted she'd done nothing wrong, that I was just jealous and paranoid. That was her usual line: deny, deflect, lie. She even claimed the money she took was for a special project she was working on, which was complete bullshit. I knew she was lying, but I needed proof, so I started recording our conversations, saving her texts, and gathering everything I could. One day, I decided I had enough. I told her I was going to see a lawyer. Her eyes widened and she started screaming, saying I was ruining everything, that I was trying to control her. She called me paranoid and abusive when I told her I was going to take legal action. That's when I realized she was trying to manipulate the situation, play the victim, and turn everyone against me if she could. She's always been good at twisting things, but I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I started talking to a lawyer the next day. I explained everything: the affair, the money she took, the house she convinced me to sign over. The lawyer told me I had a solid case to challenge the ownership of the house since I was the one who signed it, and I could potentially recover the money she stole from the emergency fund. But I also knew she was already threatening to sue me for emotional distress, which made me realize she was planning to escalate things. She's always been good at playing the victim, and I could see her trying to manipulate the legal system to her advantage. Meanwhile, she kept up her act, acting like the innocent wife who was just misunderstood. She'd cry, say I was ruining her life, that I was making everything worse. But I wasn't falling for it anymore. I had enough evidence to back me up, and I was determined to fight for what was rightfully mine. I started documenting everything: her threats, her lies, her attempts to manipulate me. I knew she was dangerous in her own way, and I had to be prepared. The hardest part was knowing I'd have to face her again, probably in court. I didn't want this to turn into some nasty legal battle, but I knew I had no choice. I felt like I was losing myself in all of this: the trust, the love, the sense of security I once had. But I also knew I had to stand my ground. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me, not after everything she'd done. I was going to fight for my house, my money, my dignity. I just hoped I had the strength to see it through, because right now I felt like I was barely holding on. The days that followed were a blur of meetings, legal consultations, and trying to keep my head above water. I remember sitting in that lawyer's office, staring at the documents, feeling like I was in some nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The lawyer, a sharp guy named Tom, laid out my options clearly. I could challenge her ownership of the house, especially since I was the one who signed the paperwork, but it wouldn't be easy. She'd probably try to claim I was abusive or emotionally unstable, and that's when she'd threaten to sue me for emotional distress over the property and the money I lost. I knew I had to prepare myself for a war. Lisa was already playing the victim, crying fake tears, claiming I'd been controlling and manipulative. She'd always been good at twisting stories to suit her narrative. I could see her doing that now, trying to turn everyone against me: her friends, the lawyers, maybe even the courts. She'd paint me as the villain who was trying to ruin her life because I found out about her affair. But the truth was staring at me from the evidence I collected: her lies, her texts, her bank transactions. I decided to confront her again, knowing full well it might make things worse, but I needed to see her reaction face to face. I called her into the living room one afternoon, told her I had everything I needed to fight back. Her face immediately twisted into that familiar sneer. She tried to act innocent, like I was just a jealous husband making a big deal out of nothing. But I wasn't buying her act anymore. I laid out everything: the affair, the money, the house, the threats, and watched her try to spin her way out of it. Her response: she started yelling, calling me crazy, paranoid, and abusive. She said I was trying to control her, that I was just jealous of Mark. Then she started crying, fake tears rolling down her cheeks, and accused me of ruining her reputation. That's when I saw the true depth of her manipulation. She's always been good at playing the victim, even when she's the one who's done wrong. She told me I was making her life hell, that I was destroying everything we built together. But I knew better: she was the one tearing everything apart. I felt a surge of anger. I told her I was done playing her games. I was going to take legal action to get back what she stole: our house, the money, and hold her accountable for her lies and betrayal. I could see her trying to hold it together, but I also saw the flicker of fear behind her eyes. She knew I was serious. I told her that if she kept up her manipulations, I'd fight her in court and make sure she paid for everything she'd done. That night, I sat alone in the dark, feeling exhausted but determined. I realized I'd lost a lot: trust, security, my peace of mind. But I still had my dignity. I knew Lisa wasn't going to change, not now, not ever. She'd always be the manipulative, selfish person who lied her way out of trouble. I decided then that I wasn't going to let her win. I'd fight for my rights, for the house, for the money, and for myself. I'd show her that I was stronger than her lies, that I wouldn't be her pawn anymore. The next step was preparing for a legal battle. I gathered all my evidence, organized my documents, and made sure I had everything I needed to stand my ground. I also started thinking about what I really wanted, whether I should try to salvage the marriage or cut ties completely. Honestly, after everything I'd found out, the idea of staying with her felt impossible. I felt betrayed at every level, but I also knew I had to be strategic. I couldn't just storm into court without a plan. So here I am, at this point, feeling like I'm about to go into war. It's not just about the house or the money anymore. It's about reclaiming my life from her lies, her betrayal, and her manipulations. I don't know how this will turn out, but I do know this. I'm done being the victim. I'm ready to fight for what's mine, and I won't back down. I just hope I have the strength to see it through, because right now, everything feels like it's hanging in the balance. The legal process started moving faster than I expected. Lisa's threats to sue me for emotional distress only added fuel to the fire. She kept calling me names, trying to paint herself as the innocent victim, claiming I was abusive and manipulative. Her words were designed to sway anyone who'd listen, her friends, the lawyer she hired, even the judge if it ever came to that. But I had the evidence and I was ready to use it. I remember sitting in my attorney's office, going over the strategy. Tom, my lawyer, explained that I had a strong case to contest the house ownership because I was the one who signed the deed. But he also warned me that Lisa might try to spin things around and claim I was emotionally abusive, which could complicate matters. That's when I realized how dangerous she was. She'd do anything to win, even if it meant lying and manipulating the legal system. Meanwhile, I was dealing with a storm of emotions. I felt betrayed, angry, and exhausted. Every time I saw her, I felt that familiar surge of rage. She was still pretending to be the innocent wife, crying fake tears, insisting she loved me and that I was just paranoid. But I knew better now. I knew her lies, her manipulations, her affair with Mark. Every new piece of evidence I uncovered made her look more guilty, yet she kept up her act, trying to sway everyone with her tears and false accusations. One day, I decided to confront her again, this time more directly. I told her I had everything I needed to take her to court, that I was prepared to fight for the house, the money, and to hold her accountable for her lies. Her reaction was a mixture of anger and panic. She screamed, called me crazy, possessive, and abusive, trying to turn the tables and make me look like the villain. She even accused me of trying to control her, which was laughable considering she'd been controlling the entire situation behind my back for months. But I held my ground. I told her I was done with her games, that I wouldn't be manipulated anymore. I showed her the evidence I had, screenshots of her sexting Mark, bank statements, the transfer of $150, $0 from our emergency fund, the signed house deed, and told her I was going to fight for what's mine. I saw her face twist into a mask of fury, but I also saw the flicker of fear behind her eyes. She knew I was serious. The legal battle was about to begin, and I felt a strange mixture of relief and dread. I knew she was capable of anything. She'd already proven she'd lie, cheat, and manipulate to get what she wanted. But I also knew I had the truth on my side. I wasn't going to let her destroy me or take everything I'd worked for. I started preparing myself mentally for the fight ahead. I also realized I needed to be strategic about my next steps. I'd been considering whether to try to salvage the marriage or cut ties for good. Honestly, after everything I'd uncovered, the idea of staying with her seemed impossible. The betrayal ran too deep, but I knew I had to be smart. I couldn't just rush into court without a plan. I needed to protect myself, my reputation, and my future. So I decided to do what I should have done all along: take control. I hired a private investigator to gather more proof of her ongoing lies and any other shady dealings she might be involved in. I also started documenting everything: her threats, her manipulative comments, her attempts to turn people against me. I knew she'd escalate her tactics, and I had to be ready for anything. This process has been draining, but I refuse to back down now. I've learned that trust is fragile and betrayal can come from the most unexpected places. I can't undo what's been done, but I can fight to reclaim my life. I'm not sure how this will end, but I'm determined to see it through. I just hope the truth will prevail, and I'll finally be able to move on from this nightmare. The court date finally arrived, and I felt like I was walking into a battlefield. All the months of stress, planning, and emotional exhaustion culminated in that one day. Lisa showed up with her new lawyer, throwing around accusations, trying to paint herself as the victim again. She kept crying, claiming I was abusive, controlling, and that I was trying to ruin her life because I couldn't handle losing the marriage. Her face was a mask of tears, but I knew better. I had the evidence, screenshots, bank records, witness statements that proved her lies. The judge listened carefully as my lawyer laid out the case. We presented the signed deed, proving I was the rightful owner of the house. We showed the bank statements where she the $150, $0, the sexting messages with Mark, and the threatening emails she sent when I started to question her. Lisa's lawyer tried to spin it, but the evidence was overwhelming. She was caught in her lies, and the court saw right through her manipulations. When it was her turn to speak, she tried her usual tricks, crying, insisting she loved me, claiming I was abusive, trying to sway the judge's opinion. But I stayed silent, knowing that my evidence spoke volumes. I saw her eyes flicker with panic when the judge asked about the money and the house. She knew she was cornered. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. The house was awarded to me and I was granted full control. The judge also ordered Lisa to return the $150, $0 she stole from the emergency fund. As for her threats of suing me for emotional distress, the judge dismissed her claims, citing lack of evidence and her ongoing dishonesty. It was a victory, but a hollow one. I knew the emotional scars would take time to heal. After the court, I felt this strange mix of relief and emptiness. I had finally reclaimed what was mine, but the betrayal had left a wound that wouldn't easily close. Lisa was gone from my life now. She moved out within days, leaving behind her lies and her manipulations. I felt a strange sense of freedom, but also a deep sadness. I realized I'd lost a part of myself in all of this, my trust, my innocence, my sense of security. Looking back, I learned a lot from this nightmare. Trust is fragile, and sometimes the people closest to you can hurt you the most. I also learned that fighting for what's right is worth it, even when it feels like the world is crumbling around you. I've come out of this stronger, more cautious about who I let into my life, and more aware of the importance of standing up for myself. To anyone going through something similar, trust your instincts. Don't ignore the signs. When something feels wrong, don't brush it aside. Gather evidence, seek legal advice, and don't be afraid to fight for your rights. Betrayal hurts, but you don't have to let it define you. I've learned that even in the darkest moments, there's a way to find light. It's not easy and it's not quick, but eventually the truth comes out and justice can be served. Now I'm focused on rebuilding my life, piece by piece, knowing I've survived something that nearly broke me. And that, in itself, is a kind of victory.